Hey everyone, Jonathan here. A few people have asked me to do some videos showing how I approach cooking, both because they're foodies, obviously, and because they'd like to learn a little bit. They see cooking as intimidating, and they see me posting about cooking and eating sometimes, which I feel like we do a lot just as people. But give it a shot, why not? Today I'm going to be making some sweet chili, putting it over some nachos. We're going to have a look here at the primary ingredients used to make this chili. We've got the ground beef. We've got some, any kind of like red or black bean will do. These are specifically kidney beans. We need a little bit of a tomato sauce of some sort. I'm going to be using this shitty ragu. Barbecue sauce, some kind of like sweet and tangy barbecue sauce is probably best. We're going to be using taco seasoning, these slices of cheese, and this slowly unfurling package of frozen vegetables. Oh, those red peppers. Those are going to happen too. So first things first, we're just going to cut up this red pepper. I'm not going to be using the whole thing in this recipe since I'm only making enough for me. That should be pretty sufficient. I'm going to take each of these, like, roughly cut pieces and cut them down to about that big. And then further, dice them up. The smaller the chunks, the better. You want this to just kind of blend into the sauce. So you get like that. Okay, so we have those taken care of. That's all the dicing that's actually involved here. Now, I just want to say, if you don't have your own frozen vegetables just laying around, these spaghetti vegetables, you can always dice up your own onion, green pepper, what else is in this shit? Carrots, I guess? But yeah, you can always use fresh produce if you've got it, or even canned if that's what you've got available. The point of this isn't to make like some kind of perfect dish. It's just to make something that's good and easy with the shit you got around. This is what I happen to have on me. Now, because we're going to be using ground beef, I'm not going to bother putting any oil in the pan. What you're seeing in the pan right now is water. Just a little bit in order to keep my vegetables from burning while I soften them before I put in the meat. So now we'll let that come to a bit of a simmer, and then we will add the ground beef. Meanwhile, it's time to put some spices in. Now, these aren't essential to the recipe. Everything I showed you is collectively all you actually need to make this. But if you happen to have some spices, these are the ones I would use. We're going to start with some crushed red pepper. I know we already have red pepper in there. I just want more. Some pepper, which I now realize I can't actually do with one hand. There we go. Doesn't need that much. And to help build the spicy profile for this, because I'm making a sweet chili, which is going to be sweet and spicy, I'm going to start with some cayenne pepper. You don't need a whole lot of this. It's not especially good tasting as a spice, but it is spicy, and it can help build that sort of flavor profile. I don't even know if that's a word, but that's what I'm calling it. A little more than that, actually. And lastly, we're going to put some chilies in. There, just crushed chilies. Dried out, crushed chilies. Now you'll notice I didn't dice any garlic. That's because for this recipe, I'm just going to go ahead and use some garlic powder. Either's fine. I haven't bothered measuring it. That's just how much I'm putting in. I like garlic. So, you'll notice I do things pretty freeform. That's because once you really get used to the rules of cooking, you can kind of just eyeball it. Baking's different, though. Don't try to do that with baking. That's much more exact. So starting to heat up. We're going to do a little stirring. See, one thing you might be thinking is, wait a minute, aren't those herbs fat-soluble, not water-soluble? Well, yeah. Just putting them in now to save time. We could wait until we put the beef in, and it'll properly get into everything. Notice I'm clearing space. It's because we're about to put the beef in. Here we have beef. For real, though, you want to make sure you break it up. The water actually really helps with this, too. If you're making some sort of sauce with the meat, it doesn't matter if it gets wet and doesn't brown the way you'd like it to, because it's just going to get covered in, like, tomato sauce or whatever the fuck. Using water helps you keep it broken up. Like, they don't stick back together quite as much. It's a really handy tip for you. A little bit of water. Doesn't matter if it gets mixed in with the veggies, because that's the ultimate, like, situation we're going for. But at least to begin with, I want to get it all broken up and start cooking before I properly mix it. But, like, a fucking red pepper here or there isn't going to hurt it. This is really awkward to do through a camera lens. Okay, it's starting to brown a little bit. We're going to go ahead and actually stir it up together. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but we have it on medium heat, and we're going to keep it there for this whole recipe. So now that it's all stirred up, the only thing left to do is let it cook. Because we're going to be using the taco seasoning, which will require water, we're actually not going to cook it without a cover. If you happen to have a appropriate size cover like this one, that'll do. Otherwise, you can always use a plate and just lay it down over it like plate side up so that you can lift it if you have to. And be very careful when you do that, or the steam will steam, and that can burn you. So I recommend, if you decide to do that with the plate, definitely use a oven mitt or cloth or something. Alright, we're back, and everything seems to be cooked up nicely. The veggies are still pretty hard, but the meat is cooked. You'll notice it didn't brown as much as you might expect. That's because I used the water. But, as I said earlier, we were going to add water anyway, and it's going to be a sauce, so it doesn't matter. Now you might be asking, how long did that take? Honestly, I don't know exactly. Maybe like 8 minutes? 10? I just kind of went to my computer, did a little bit of stuff, and came back. Once again, as long as your pan isn't like dry, like you haven't boiled it down and it's starting to burn, there's really no big deal. The only things you have to worry about like that are pastas, which might get too soft. Or if you're not making minute rice, then there's a possibility you'll burn it. But for this kind of recipe, you can kind of just guess, like come back and check on it, and if you're afraid you're going to forget about it and it will actually boil down and burn, set an alarm, like for 10 minutes. If that's not long enough, set it for 5 more and come back. And don't be afraid to add more water or more oil or whatever you think will help keep it from burning. Speaking of water, this is the whole reason water is going back in. We're going to put the taco spice into the recipe. And, pro tip, since we're going to be putting these haricot beans in, instead of just the water, we're going to use the chipotle sweet sauce that's already in there and some water to water this down so we can make it into a sauce. Now, any more we bother to add, we'll just use the bean can to get as much of that sweet sauce in as we can. Which might actually be sweet enough for you, flavor-wise. So don't be afraid to taste test this at any point, just a little bit of the water or what have you. Because the meat's already cooked. Just don't eat the veggies because they're not. So now we need to boil this down. We're going to keep it right there where it is, on medium. And just leave it uncovered for a while. Okay, so we're effectively cooked, and you could go ahead and call this chili. It's essentially done. But This is sweet chili, and while the sauce the beans were in was sweet, it's not sweet enough for my tastes. So we are going to add this barbecue sauce. Now this is a beer and chipotle barbecue sauce. The chipotle combination between the beans and the sauce are a coincidence because they were on sale. But this is not. This is my favorite barbecue sauce. Yes, that's a lot of it. Fight me. The last thing we're adding is this pasta sauce. Just a little bit. You actually don't need much because the flavor is secondary. I do recommend using like a 3-cheese kind if you have it. The real purpose is to get that tomato paste in here. And I guess you could use ketchup for this, but I don't think that would taste quite as good. And it seriously affects the consistency. There. Much thicker. Big thick. So here it is simmering, and I lied about that being the last thing I'm adding, because I forgot about the cheese. Now, I don't have block cheese or ground cheese itself, which you would normally just put over the nachos, so this is sort of my compromise. If you do have the block cheese or ground cheese, then you don't need to add it to the sauce. I, however, do. And that needs to melt. In the meantime, I'm going to go prepare a plate of nachos to pour this over. Alright, that only took the briefest of moments. You'll notice I turned off the stove and stirred it all together. The stove will still be hot for a moment, so... That's great. So, like I said, got a plate of nachos ready. You actually can serve this just on its own, if that's what you like, or on some pasta, or some rice. But I have nachos. Be jealous. And here we have it, a plate of sweet chili nachos. You can just go ahead and enjoy it like that, or you can put some ground cheese over it, like I mentioned earlier. I, however, really like pickled jalapenos, so we're going to put a few of those on there. Dun, 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 dun. Doesn't really matter how. All go into the same place in the end. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. These are really good, by the way. If you like spicy food, like these are absolutely optional. These are just my preference. No, seriously, they're delicious. Spicy. Anyway, that's roughly how I make my nachos. Let me know what you think of this vlog, if you found it educational, if you think I could have explained things more or included more information. Make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and maybe consider becoming a patron so you can get more of this fine content. Anyway, I'm fucking hungry, so bye.